Jordan Willis. You had to be sitting there shaking in your shoes because it only takes a little bit of time for things to start rolling and people's mouths to start opening and the stories to begin being told to paint a picture that could back you into a quarter. Kansas City 3. Jordan Willis, I have a feeling you're in frozen shock phase as you're trying to find a way out. I'm A.R. Hayes, the Convict's Thoughts. We're going to roll into a little bit of idea of pre-today's information. I know there's some boomers that came out as the families are speaking of the deceased. They have been, and they've been meeting with the prosecutors. So there's a lot that's being said. David, Clayton, Ricky, all have loved ones. And some of the info's coming out about the mad scientist, Jordan Willis. But let's rewind. Let's hold on a minute because we got to come back. I haven't spoken a lot about this case yet because I reserved myself because I've been through the gamut and I've watched these things unfold. Not so much for myself, but for others. And there's always this preconceived notion that Ellie is missing something. They need to look into it. They gotta hold on, relax. Because it all works within steps to get to a point that someone can step up to that microphone and announce exactly the direction the case is going. Now, the Kansas City 3 is a bizarre case. For all of you that have been engaged and watching it, there's some great content out there by some great content creators. They're staying right on top of it and keeping you updated. And that's fabulous. I personally have been working behind the scenes on other things, so I haven't dove in as much. Or maybe I've dabbled in diving in a little bit, and I just haven't spoken about it yet. But today's the time. You all have seen the videos now of when the law enforcement arrive and take Jordan Willis into custody the night that the bodies were found. Neighbors, everybody watching and filming. What a spectacle to see. It's a very sad spectacle to see, no matter what pushed it to happen. And come on, ladies and gentlemen, many of us in the back of our minds knew this was going to involve either a mad scientist that concocted something that took the lives of the three individuals that froze in the backyard. Literally froze in the backyard. Or it was going to be something that comes down to narcotics. And the main key to all of this is waiting for the toxicology report that's going to answer those questions. So when the officers detained Jordan Willis on the night that they discovered the bodies, he was not officially under arrest. That's called an investigative hold. And we've discussed this before in other means. I've said it about other cases where they, instead of allowing someone to run all over the country, they needed to go ahead and put the cuffs on him, investigative hold him, because you get up to 72 hours with that individual on an investigative hold. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to answer law enforcement's questions. They don't have to. They get read their Miranda rights just like everybody else, whether you're arrested or you're just being brought in to make a statement or discuss a case. That's your protection. And what it sounds like is Jordan Willis went ahead and lawyered up. Now, when it comes to an investigative hold, law enforcement and the investigators and the interrogators do everything they can to make you feel as comfortable as possible, as if you're just there to answer a few questions. You're free to go whenever you choose. But I'm going to give you a little heads up. If that interrogation or interview room door closes behind you, remember something, it's locked from the outside. You are not officially free to go unless they deem so. Meaning they don't actually move forward and charge you right then and there. Jordan Willis most likely lawyered up and answered no questions. He probably sat in that interrogation or interview room, let's say slash, for hours as they tried to get information in regards to what happened to the 3 men found in his backyard. Unfortunately, what it seems as though is law enforcement didn't do a lot of actual investigative work in or around the home. At least not from what we see or know. That doesn't mean that law enforcement didn't get information or actual evidence from that home without us knowing. Because remember, as they are gathering Jordan Willis to load him into the car to take him to the actual precinct to discuss things with him, because he opened his door to law enforcement, they are very much allowed to enter. They could search. They could look around. They might have found very critical evidence, and we just don't know about it because they've chosen to not release that as of yet, because they need to line that up with the toxicology reports that come back. That doesn't mean that they're not hip to something going on. It also would not stop them from allowing Jordan Willis to walk out of the precinct as a free man with his lawyer to go about his own ways. They want to keep eyes on Jordan and see exactly what his moves are. Very, very telling what an individual does after they've been interviewed or interrogated. That could almost tell you more than what's said within the interrogation room. But don't think that Jordan Willis is off the hook. Law enforcement, even though, and it really rippled the whole effect for many, law enforcement came out right away and said, there's no case being investigated here. We find no foul play. Do you really believe that when they say that? Do you really truly believe in everything that we've been seeing through 2003 and 2024 that's coming to light, that they are releasing the actual real truth when they say that? No, I'm going to tell you right now, they're not. They're sitting back and they're waiting for those toxicology reports. They have good reason to. Even if those 3 individuals overdosed and lost their lives in regards to a little bit of a party at Jordan Willis's home, Jordan Willis would be investigated, if not actually charged, with many of factors within that. Negligence to a homicide or a death, I shouldn't say homicide, even though an overdose, when narcotics are brought or bought from somebody else is actually in the lines of homicide, depending on what they find wrong within those narcotics. But the delivery person, for one, is in trouble. Now, they'll get lesser charges than homicide. But two, the person entertaining the party is liable and chargeable as well on a whole wide spectrum of charges. Anything from literally misdemeanors to pretty tough felonies. They could be doing years upon years within the penitentiary. Now, it's said, and it's alleged at this point, but it is coming pretty clear from a family member of one of the deceased that they know some back history, back years ago, to Jordan Willis in regards to his making, or mad scientist making, of things. Who knows what they truly are? It's not been specified, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, because guess what? I don't like talking about those things. I really don't. But it's starting to show the frameworks of what many of everybody was thinking possibly happened, and it's truly sad. It's truly sad. But, I mean, you've really kind of put up your hands and admit to the fact, if that's the case, bad batch, something went wrong, they were test guinea pigs, it wouldn't be all that uncommon. That would take this case out of the strange and unusual and put it into another everyday, sick to your stomach, I can't believe it happened again moment that comes back to narcotics and the loss of life. This is what usage and addiction leads to and ends up as. It's sad. It's very, very sad. But as we've all watched, and I even said it in my very first video in regards to the Kansas City 3 case, you have to watch what Jordan Willis's lawyer is presenting and how that story begins to revolve and change, because it shows there's some things being hidden, for one, and two, they're trying to manufacture a story on the fly and make it make all sense. Sadly, it normally doesn't, because you're on the fly trying to make up a story to protect yourself from being viewed as the person that caused 3 people to lose their lives. And I know, I saw the little writings on the wall where Jordan felt depressed and guilt in regards to the loss of life. I don't believe that's true. I hate to say that. I really don't. I believe he realizes he's caught. But I believe he was caught the night that the bodies were found and things just weren't said. And he may be walking free right at this moment, but that's not going to last forever. And it's not as if they're not watching him. They know where he's at. He just checked in to a rehab center. Ding, ding, ding. Wow, surprising, right? Rehab center. That's only to cover and get sympathy from people that believe now he has the issue and the addiction, which maybe he possibly does. Maybe he possibly does. But that should never get you off of the hook if you played a part in people losing their lives. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. I know people that get driving while intoxicated and they hit a vehicle and it ends up with a loss of life. They didn't mean to do it, but the sad factor is they caused a loss of life. You're liable for that, and you should be charged, and you should be punished. You took someone's loved one's life. Well, this would be the same scenario. You took 3 people's loved one's life. Even if you weren't the provider, you facilitated with the party place and you knew what was transpiring and you did nothing to ensure that everybody stayed breathing and healthy. I remember in my younger years, I was one of the only people within my group of friends or hangout acquaintances that did not use and did not drink. So I always took it upon my own self to be the one that was the watcher. The one that if I saw something going wrong, I needed to find a solution to make sure it never ended up, well, kind of like the Kansas City 3. Is this worthy of a life sentence in the penitentiary? Well, it's all going to come back to what that toxicology report shows. If this is something that he concocted himself, that he was creating, whether intentionally or unintentionally, that took the lives of the 3 individuals, yes, he's going to get more than a life sentence. He's going to get 3 of them. He will get stacked charges, including narcotics, manufacturing, distribution, many other charges. This is life upon life sentences. Now, if he didn't manufacture or create the so-called product, but he facilitated it or partaked in it, and 3 lives were lost, there's a chance he doesn't get life. But he's going to get an extreme amount of years. My opinion, from what I've seen in the past, it's going to be 10 years or more for a first-time offender, with lifetime parole at the end of the case. I don't know what Jordan Willis did, but I see the end result and the families that are affected by it to the point they are screaming to the skies that they feel as though Jordan Willis is responsible for this. So I kind of have to open my mind and think that there's a good possibility. There's a good chance of that. I don't want to, because I didn't want to see 3 people lose their lives to begin with, especially in a manner of freezing. I guess the one thing that maybe some people that have talked to me in regards to this have said is maybe they didn't feel it. Maybe they didn't feel the loss of life. I tend to disagree. Whatever was impairing their body affected their body. It affected their mind. Who knows? Who knows how it affected it? But I have a gut feeling they knew what was happening, even if it was a hallucination state of what was happening. But then the bitter cold to freeze in that way, I feel for the young men. I really do. I hope they get justice. And this is just why cases like this, you have to take a deep breath and allow the actual workings to happen. And we're seeing in other cases, this isn't happening because of the gag orders and the closed mouths and everybody being quiet and everything being hidden. Well, this case, even though law enforcement didn't come right out and say, we have a case here, you're seeing how methodically it's working its way to the forefront. It's going to show itself the minute that toxicology report comes back. I'm A.R. Hayes, A Convict's Thoughts, Kansas City 3, Jordan Willis. You may be in prison till hell freezes over. Have a good night, everybody. Talk to you soon.